And I know, it's not about comparing yourself to others, so to speak, but it kind of is. On Reddit, to the PGY1s and junior residents who are thinking of quitting. PGY4 surgical resident here. I've been seeing a lot of new residents asking about quitting and not a lot of reassurance in the comments. First, your feelings are valid and you're not being weak or crazy. The learning curve is steep and you question your life choices every day, but I promise you it gets better. Remind yourself daily that you've been a real doctor for less than 6 months and you're trying to compare yourself with people who've been at this for years to decades. It's all new and you are at the bottom of the food chain yet again. Keep at it, it gets better, and you can do this. At some point, someone has said, they can always hurt you more, but they can't stop the clock. A very common cliche for good reason. This has gotten me through many calls and rough rotations. The days are long, but the months go by faster than you think. Or as they say, the days are long, but the years are short. What I'm saying will not feel reassuring now, but please keep going. You survived undergrad, med school, graduate school, and more. You can survive this too. I like that. Good post from Hurricane K111. Cupcake Implosion says they get into this cycle where they catastrophize a lot, beat themselves down, and it leads to a cycle of underperformance and loss of courage. And they found therapy and medication helpful, and there's nothing stronger and more admirable than acknowledging a problem and solving it, and often solving complex problems requires help, as we see every day in medical practice. This is something we see a lot in certain personality types, and I can relate to this, which is that you feel like you're just not doing enough. No matter what goals you've set beforehand, and even if you achieve or exceed those goals, the goalposts then shift. And now it's not just a matter of publishing 30 articles, now you need 40 articles, even though a year or two ago you would have been happy with 20. Or let's say you go from a B student to an A student, and you should be happy with that. Now you're focused on, hey, why did I not get an A+, rather than being grateful for the A. And I understand the utility of this mindset. It's because by flogging ourselves, by being harder on ourselves, we can push ourselves to achieve more than we feel we otherwise would. But there's a balance here, and if you are constantly too hard on yourself and you never allow yourself to look back, look down the mountain and see how far you've climbed up, and you only keep looking towards the top, how far you still need to go, you're gonna lose perspective and you're not gonna enjoy that journey nearly as much. Because let me tell you, there have been a few big milestones or big goals I wanted to hit, and once you hit them, it feels good for a day or for a week. But looking back, you realize what was way more enjoyable was the journey of seeing myself inching closer and closer to the top being achieving that goal. And if you do have strong negative self-talk, which is something that I can relate to at certain points in my life, it's still there, but far less than it used to be. Things like journaling, things like therapy can go a long way to helping you understand why you resort to that way of thinking. You speak to yourself with such harshness in a way that you would never speak to your friend. Why is it such that we can treat others better than we can treat ourselves? And by doing the journaling, by doing the introspection, by doing the meditating and the therapy, and I'm not endorsing this, and of course the legality and health risks and disclaimers and all that stuff, but sometimes even taking some substances can help with that exploration journey. When you get more curious about why you operate in the way that you do, and you choose to let go of the behaviors and the patterns and those tools that served you once long ago. 10, 15 years ago, you were a different person, different circumstances, and whatever helped you get through those really tough, challenging situations back then, they may not be serving you anymore, and they may actually be holding you back right now, but you don't know that because it's just so deeply ingrained that it's the default for you. It's not a logical conclusion you arrived at saying, oh, I should do this in this moment right now. It's an old pattern that's just sticking along for the ride. You take a highly productive person that's been an excellent student for years, where when they tried and applied themselves, they've succeeded. Then you put them in an environment where everything's new and fast-paced and high pressure, and you expect them to know how they learn best in this new environment, which results in a lot of high achievers feeling like they are failing when they are not. It's a big change for people that are used to being at the top academically to try and feel like you're flailing about and incompetent. I think some people are more aware of the fact that when you're an intern, you're just not going to be anywhere close to as good and as competent as some of your senior residents, and other people are less aware of that. I guess maybe my mindset was different when I started residency, and maybe I was lucky that I had some senior residents I really clicked with, and when I had those periods of doubt, I could go to them and say, dude, you're totally fine. You're crushing. Don't worry about it. Being able to talk to someone you trust that's in the system, whether it's friends who are residents at other programs or friends and co-residents at your current program, is going to go a long way, helping you add that perspective. I don't think it gets better. Opie says it's never easy, that's for sure. It helps to be senior enough to not hold the pager though. The decision fatigue from nursing pages is real. So the pager, the service has a pager, and nurses that need to reach that service, the group of neurosurgeons, they message that pager, and then whoever is holding the pager is the one that's now fielding all those incoming pages. So the decision fatigue of, what to actually act on, what not to, and what to do with each page can be fatiguing. But this whole sentiment of, I don't think it gets better, I'm trying to toe the line here, because what I don't want to do is invalidate that people feel that residency is really tough. It is really tough. And certain programs are going to be tough, certain specialties are going to be tough, and there's a whole spectrum here, which is why I have some friends who are like, dude, I love residency. This is like way better than I was expecting. And other friends are like, dude, this is way worse than I was expecting. This is really tough, right? It's not a value judgment on them as a person. There's a lot of variation within each specialty and within each program as to what your experience will look like. However, that being said, there are certain things you can do to increase your resiliency and reduce the risk that you feel cynical and burned out and thinking it's not going to get better. One of those things is not biting off more than you can chew. Residency, especially at the beginning, is going to be a huge learning process, a huge adjustment period. So if you are doing a lot of things on the side on top of that feel like obligations, you're just increasing the risk that you're going to have a bad time. If, however, you say, hey, these first 3 months, 6 months, I need to focus on just adjusting to residency and doing the best job I can, and then I can worry about those other goals or those other things I want to do outside of residency later, you'll increase the risk that you have a smoother transition and you're not as stressed and burnt out and feeling as hopeless. And then, of course, there are many other things too, which I know that they're so cliche and trite and annoying to hear, but yeah, you focus on your sleep, your exercise, and your nutrition. It does make changes. I mean, the older I get, the more I notice that change. And maybe I notice it at an earlier age because I have Crohn's colitis, but we all experience it. We're all human. It's just a matter of how tuned in you are to your body and understanding that, oh yeah, wow, when I get good quality sleep, I feel way better the next day. My mood is better. My decision making is improved, etc., etc. As a PGY1 who is on the verge of quitting myself, I know I can survive residency, but at what personal cost should surviving residency take from me? It's taken all their time, dignity, pride, confidence. Every day they're told they're not nice enough, not caring enough, not empathetic enough, and that they need to try harder to better their relationships and be more professional with senior residents who treat them like shit. They're not even a bad intern. They did a transitional year last year, and the seniors are intimidated because they know more than they should for an intern. So because I'm better clinically, they feel it appropriate to find any way to criticize you. I know I didn't sign up for this. You gotta keep in mind, don't have the full picture here. The first impression I get reading this comment from some anonymous internet stranger is that when we report things and if we come off as a victim, it's often, not always, but it's oftentimes a highly biased perspective. And the first thought that comes up for me reading like the first paragraph, I'm like, well, if someone's giving you feedback, are you acting on that feedback? Or is your ego rejecting that feedback as invalid? If someone tells me, hey, Kevin, you come across as too cold in your videos, and it would be great if you tried to, be a little bit more warm. I'm like, okay, cool. If I can do that in a way that feels authentic, I'd love to do that. And let me learn how I can become more warm and less cold in my videos. I'm not going to just reject it and say, oh my God, every day people are saying this stuff and they're wrong, right? Again, I don't know the whole picture here, and I'm not sure that's necessarily what's happening. But in life, people will say mean and nasty things. We've all been through some shit, some more than others. And I think oftentimes what's more important than what actually happens to you is how you respond to it. I know in my training, both in med school and in residency, there were certain people that I did not mesh with, and I felt like they had one out for me to get me, right? But I wasn't going to let that get to me. I knew that ultimately it was up to me to decide, am I going to kill them with kindness? Am I going to underpromise and overdeliver? How can I make it so that despite being in the situation that I don't like, at the end of the day, when I look back at this, I'm like, yeah, I did the best that I could. I gained from a shitty situation. I was given lemons and I made that lemonade. It's not just the workload, it's inflation going up, loans going up, and reimbursements going down. The juice ain't worth the squeeze, and I'd quit if I wasn't a resident in derm, plastics, rads, psych, PM&R. Of course, we all know that dermatologists that then did a fellowship in plastics and radiology, psychiatry, and PM&R, which took them about 22 years to specialize in. Look, the golden age of medicine is behind us, but I think oftentimes people overstate how far away we are from the golden age, in the sense that we were way up here, now we're down here. Nah, dude, we're like, having the EMR has resulted in more charting and billing paperwork and such, and can actually increase burnout rates, and with reimbursements going down and yada yada. I understand there are downsides, but let's be real. That short list of specialties They're obviously not saying that that would be a single specialty. That's just a joke. They, for those different specialties, dermatology, plastic surgery, radiology, psychiatry, PM&R, there are many other specialties that are definitely worth the squeeze. And again, like compared to other careers, everyone's getting hit by inflation. Just about no wage is keeping up with inflation in any industry. And yes, loans and reimbursements going down, still totally doable with a physician salary. You live below your means, you live like a resident, and you aggressively hit your loans, you're gonna be in a great financial position. Your mid 30s, late 30s, and onward is just gonna snowball from there because you have a very high income. And if you have not yet gotten into med school, then you can do what I did. I paid for my own college, I paid for my own med school, I didn't come from money and have someone foot the bill, and yet I had very low student loans because you work your tail off, you earn merit-based scholarship. It's not based on how lucky you are, it's based on how hard you work and how hard you apply yourself. And that's a way of just taking more agency. And yeah, like loans suck. Like it's a lot of money, $250K. It's actually more than $250,000 in loans now. It increases every year. But you can take agency. You can say, I'm gonna be the person who is gonna work hard, get merit-based scholarship, and eliminate all of my tuition costs as a result. And if you are a pre-med, you wanna do the same thing. At Med School Insiders, we help people get into med school and do exactly that. No guarantees, but we help increase the odds that you can also earn those merit-based scholarships. So then they follow up and say that compared to other industries, their friends are making massive money working better hours and in better conditions, and they're not in FANG or in big finance. They're all idiots at a state school. But if you're like everyone else in the sub, you got to make what you can with what you're in. I don't know, dude. I'm not really buying that all of your friends that went to state schools are making way better money compared to a resident. Yeah, sure, but residency is 3 to 7 years. And yes, it's a little bit longer if you do a fellowship, right? But why are you comparing your earning during 3 years of your career compared to the earning for the next 30 years of your career after you finish your training? Your attending physician salary is going to be way higher than these friends. And I know it's not about comparing yourself to others, so to speak, but it kind of is, right? It's about, well, if I could have done this other path and worked less and made more, then isn't that a valid consideration? Money isn't everything, but it is an important consideration. And as an attending physician in most specialties, I mean, the average physician compensation is like $366K. That's both primary care and specialists combined. And if you look at just primary care, it's a little bit lower than that. If you look at just specialists, it's higher than that. It's like $400K. And in response, I like this person's comment. They have very few friends making $500K a year, and they can't get a new job anytime, anywhere that they want. But this is every surgical specialty, plus rads, derm, anesthesia, GI, hemonc, and several more, guaranteed. Yeah, dude, there's so much job security when it comes to this path. People like to talk in black and white. It's all good or it's all bad. It's like, well, the truth is somewhere in the middle, as always. All right, now I'm getting invested in this thread. So he clarifies the friends aren't making $500K, but they came out with no debt and have had 5 to 8 years of solid returns on the market and pretty good career growth prospects, but they didn't go through the insane grind to be a surgeon or grind as hard as someone becoming a radiologist. True, man, but a couple things. There's the risk of doing that path versus in medicine, it's essentially guaranteed. If you can get into med school and get into the residency program you want, then you have a guaranteed path to that. There's less like office politics and office competition and going for promotions and all. Like there's stress there too that we oftentimes downplay in medicine because we don't understand it. The grass is greener. And yes, in these early years, they're gonna have a huge head start, especially with the returns of the market, all that stuff. But long term, you're gonna have a much higher salary that if you are spending that, or rather investing that intelligently and not just spending all your income, then you should be able to overtake them at some point in the future. Yeah, and I like this response, dude. You're doing cool shit every day, man. Like as a surgeon, you're just doing some pretty cool shit. Don't do it if you don't find it to be cool and awesome and energizing. But if you do find it to be those things, then by all means, enjoy your life, work hard, and surgery is fucking awesome. SLN MD. I'm having the greatest PGY 1 year ever. I feel bad for you dummies who rank prestige and academic programs over amazing community hospitals. You have no idea how good we have it over here. I mean, I can't argue with that, man. As humans, we are status-seeking machines, and it depends on what rubric you assess your own status. If you're a gamer, maybe status is achieved by, let's say on iRacing, sim racing, right? It's based on your iRating score. Or if you're on Call of Duty, like there's whatever global rankings there are, maybe that's how you assess your own level of status and prestige and whatever. If you're in medicine, maybe it's the academic prestige of the program you're at, or how much money you make. That's a very common one in things beyond just medicine because it's the most easily measurable, even though it's not necessarily the most important. Because if something is just easy to measure, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should optimize for it. As an example, money. If you're making 100K a year, should you take a hit on your health that's going to cost you 15 years of your life to make 150K, 200K, a million? And maybe there is a number where after making $100 million a year, you're like, yeah, okay, I'll take 15 years cut off my life just for a better experience during the rest of my life. But we're essentially subconsciously making these decisions, and for much less money. We're saying, yeah, I will sacrifice my health, my wellness, my emotional state in order to make a little bit more money or rank higher on this arbitrary social status hierarchy game. And some of us are more aware of it than others and can control for it. And it looks like this guy over here has made more progress on it than most of us. And that's something that I've struggled with too, right? The whole workaholic tendency, which I did a lot of self-work on in my late 20s, soon after leaving residency. I was like, yeah, dude, why was I in a plastic surgery residency while also trying to build 3 separate companies and not sleeping? I was like, oh yeah, workaholism. I essentially never felt like I was enough, and then I had to do more work and achieve more and output more in order to feel like I was enough and I was worthy. And where did that come from? And then you go down into your childhood stuff and your memories and the way that you view the world. And again, some people are better at this than others. It took me a lot of intentional work, and I'm still not, I don't think it's ever fully solved or fully closed. But for me, I just have these hard boundaries I don't compromise on. I am uncompromising about my sleep and my exercise. I spend 15 hours a week just on different types of exercise between strength training and cardio and mobility work. And that feels great. I have certain boundaries on how I want to work on side hustles. I have this car channel up here. If you guys can't already tell from the background, I like cars, I like driving, I like racetrack shit. And I have certain boundaries there. Yes, that is going to counter some of my goals when it comes to building my business. And I get a lot of satisfaction and enjoyment and a lot of the status seeking measures from building my business, right? But this car channel, which is also a business of its own, although it loses money with every video, one day we'll break even. It just brings me so much joy. So it's you zoom out, you see what your tendencies are, and then you put these bumper lanes in place so that you can better align the actions you take with the values you have. So yes, I have some long-term career goals and business goals and all those things. And if you're in medicine and you're not an entrepreneur, the same thing applies. But there are other values I have beyond just what I want to do in work. And for you, those values and priorities will and should be different. It needs to align with your personal values, which will be different from mine. It's just about living and designing your life with more intentionality. And I used to judge myself so much for working a lot. I moved to Vegas and I didn't have as much of a social network here. And I just found myself working all the time. And then I tried to force it and go get dinners with some friends and meet other people on weekdays. And it just didn't feel right. And then I came to the conclusion that, well, this whole should and shouldn't is kind of nonsense. What aligns with me? And yes, on weekdays, I just want to work. Leave me alone. I'm not going to socialize. On the weekends, I will socialize a little bit when I feel like it and how I feel like it. But during the weekdays, I want to do my cycling, I want to do my strength training, and I want to do my work, and I want to maybe do a little bit of sim racing, and then go to sleep at a reasonable hour. And that makes me happy. I feel like those days when I achieve and hit each of those with a high level of intensity and intentionality and effectiveness. I'm not just scrolling on my phone on Instagram, but I'm actually getting the work done and getting a good workout. Then yeah, I'm happy, I'm stoked. If you are a PGY1 and you're struggling, I may not be the best person to say this since I quit myself, right? But I urge you to keep going, to try to learn and improve a little bit more each day. Don't bite off more than you can chew, but live with intentionality. And if you are like me and you're getting pulled in other directions and you're like, dude, I have these 2 options and I don't know which one to do, don't rush into anything. Take time. For me, it took several months of journaling, speaking to a therapist, speaking to friends and mentors to get the clarity that I needed to make a confident decision that aligned with my long-term goals, how I envisioned my life when I was 30 to 40 to 50 and plus. There's no right or wrong. Everyone's story and everyone's journey is going to be different. And your health is the first priority. Your physical and mental health are the first priority. So optimize for that. And if you need to seek help, please do so. But assuming that your health is okay, both your mental and physical health, then I would say don't rush into anything that you can't easily reverse. I think sometimes people hear about others quitting medicine and they say, oh wow, yeah, that's great. Let me, residency is hard, so I would love to do the same. But keep in mind, that those people who quit usually are quitting to something else. They have something else that has been pulling them, or something else that is a promising career that can allow them to pay off their student loans. Or some other people, they don't have any student loans and they come from a family that can serve as a safety net for them. Good for them, right? Not all of us have that opportunity. Don't think that because someone else did it, that you should too. Because if they have the safety net and you don't, then they're able to take that risk and you might not be able to. Anyway, I hope that helps. Hang in there, my friends. Much love, and I'll see you in that next one.